Hello, let's do the New York Times Medium Sudoku for April 30th, 2024. I take a systematic approach to the solve as a teaching tool. You don't have to solve exactly the same way I do, but I maybe follow along a few times if you're new to Sudoku, so you can learn what to look for and what I'm finding. And so that way you can tailor the solves that you do to at least incorporate some of these techniques. Or if you want, you can follow this exact systematic method. It will solve the mediums for you most of the time. And so I'm going to go through that now. There is a link in the description if you want to try the puzzle yourself using this software. I find this software a bit easier to use than the New York Times built-in one. And also you can play other puzzles in this software. You have to discover them, maybe through my channel, maybe through other means. But anyway, I'm going to get started right now. So the first step in our systematic method, well, first of all, let's go over some terminology real quick. This is a row, this is a column, this is a box, this is a cell, right? Each individual little thing is a cell. And then this is a band. A row of 3 boxes is a band. There's 3 bands in the puzzle. And a column of 3 boxes is a stack. There's 3 stacks in the puzzle. So we're going to start by looking at the bands. Now, of course, you can always like rotate the puzzle 90 degrees, right? And start with the stacks. But because it's a systematic method, I do it the same way each time. And that means I don't miss anything. If I'm jumping around, I might miss something trivial. The idea is to catch the easy low-hanging fruit first, get through all of that, then move on to stuff that's maybe a little bit harder to spot if you need it. So we're going to go band by band. I'm going to start with this top band. And what we're looking for is the first thing we look for, the lowest hanging fruit, is when there are 2 out of the 3 of a digit placed in that band. There are no examples here. But what we can do, we can use a systematic method to look through it, because sometimes, you know, you can just glance and go, oh, those 2 are the same, those 2 are the same. But trust me, you're going to miss 1 or 2 if you aren't explicit about it, especially when things get crowded. So I'm going to start with, normally I'd say start with the box with the fewest number of givens. In this case, all of them have 2. So just start with one of the boxes. Think about 2 and 7, and then look in each box, other box, for 2 and 7. We see 3, 5, 4, 8, no 2 7s. So then all we have to do is compare these 2 boxes against each other. Just pick one of them, 3, 5. Compare it against this one, no 3 5s. We've done 3 comparisons. That's efficient because we only have to compare each box against each other box once. So there are no repeats in this band, so we can't do anything with that. Before we move on to the next band, though, there's 2 things I want you to look for. One is if there's a row that's completely filled with givens within a box. There is not. And then the next thing to look for is if there is a row or box with 4 or fewer open cells. This has 8. Yeah, so there's really nothing to do with this top band, which is unfortunate. Maybe the second band will be a better example. So let's go through that. So I'm going to start with the box with the fewest givens, this 4, and I'm going to look for a 4 in both of these boxes, and I don't see any. Now I just have to compare these 2 against each other. I'll just pick 2, 3, 8, 9. Look over here. There is a repeated 2. So we're going to take these 2 2s, look in here. And then what that's going to do, let's just take a step back for a second. We have 2 out of the 3 2s placed in this band. Now, what do we know about digits in a band? Well, first of all, they never repeat in a row, and they also never repeat in a box. We also not columns, but we're not caring about columns right now because we're looking horizontally at the moment. We will look vertically soon. So, the 3, what do we know about the 3? There will always be exactly 3 of each digit in each band because there are 3 rows and there are 3 boxes. And each row and each box has has the digit once. So what do we know? We know that every box is going to have the digit and every row is going to have the digit. So there's a 2 in this box and there's a 2 in this box. So the 2 that we're missing is going to be in this middle box. We also have a 2 in this row and a 2 in this row. So the 2 that's missing will be in the row that they're not in, row 5 here, this middle row. Just so happens to be middle for both this time. So if we overlap that, we know the 2 is going to be in this box and we know the 2 is going to be in this row. So the 2 has to be where they overlap because we can't repeat it. So the 2 is only going to be in one of these 3 cells. Another way you could think about that is this 2 looks into this box and says, well, we can't repeat 2 in this row, so none of these cells are going to be 2. And this 2 looks into the box, saying none of these 3 cells are going to be a 2. So that leaves just these 3 cells to be a 2. Now, this 4 is not a 2, and we can't put 2 digits in a single cell. So actually 2 has been limited to 2 of these cells. Now, we can't place it. We're not going to be guessing here. We're not taking a 50% chance here. There's only one solution to the puzzle. And if you start guessing, you might have broken the puzzle and you don't even realize it. There may not be an obvious reason the puzzle's broken, but because there's only one solution that works. When you're presented a puzzle like this, there is only one solution that works. And so if you just guess, you have now given yourself basically a 50% chance to fail, like right from the start. And every time you guess, you're getting another chance to have failed and guessed wrong. And you're just going to break the puzzle. You're going to get frustrated. Only make logical deductions, and you will be guaranteed to have not made a mistake, as long as your logic is solid. And I will guide you through what logic works really well in Sudoku. So what we want to do is we want to remember that 2 is in one of these two, but we can't place it yet. So that's where notation comes in handy. And what I use, and it's very common to use, is I use corner mark notation. So just to be clear, this is a corner mark and this is a center mark. It's 2 different marking modes. One of them puts them in the corners of the boxes, one of them puts in the center. So I will use corner marks to denote that within a box, and it's always a box-centric thing, within the box, I have corner mark. If a corner mark for a digit exists, those are the only cells that digit can go in that box. So in this case, in this box, only these 2 cells are corner marked with 2s, which means the 2 can only go in one of these 2 cells. The 2 can't go anywhere else. And that serves to, you'll notice that's what we already deduced. Notation is useful to remember things you've already deduced that you want to remember later. So you don't have to keep all of this in your head. Some people like to try to keep it in their head, but I do not. So notation comes in handy for that. So anyway, we're going to be doing that a lot, where we find duplicate digits where we have 2 out of 3 in the band, and we're going to be corner marking where it can go in the other box. Okay. So 2 is the only digit that repeated in this band. The next thing we're going to look for is a filled box row. None of these are filled, right? And then the final thing we look for is a row or a box that has been reduced to 4 or fewer open cells. The closest it comes is this box, but that is 5 open cells. So that is the only thing we found in this band. Hopefully we find more as we continue. So let's move on to the next band. Sometimes you find a lot, sometimes you don't. So we're going to start here, the 4, 9. There is no 4, 9 in these 2. So we've done 2 out of the 3 comparisons already. You see how fast that is? And now we have the 2, 8. We just have to compare against this one. We already compared against the 4, 9, right? And we have both a 2 and an 8. So let's start with the 2, just it's the lower number. Why not? So we have these 2s looking into here. And then now what we want to do, so we know the 2 is in one of these 3, but what we want to do is we want to look up and we want to look for 2s. This is the only time you're kind of looking up and down during this initial scan, is we're just looking for additional 2s that might help. So we have this 2 here that takes, that means that this cell can't be 2 because we can't repeat in the column. And we have this 2 here that says this can't be 2 because we can't repeat in the column. And so actually there's only 1 cell left in this box that can be 2. Now that we can just place. We can place the 2 there. It is called a hidden single. And specifically, it's a hidden single in the box. Because within this box, we are going to need a 2, and there's only 1 cell that can be 2, so it must be 2. Because otherwise, we will not be able to place a 2 in the box, and that in Sudoku says we must place a 2 in the box. So we place that 2. That's very handy. That's the kind of thing we're really, really looking for when we find these duplicates. Now we also have these 8s that look in, and then we look up, and we see we have this 8 as well, taking 8 out of here. So 8 is reduced to 2 places. What do we do when it's 2? Well, we're going to corner mark the 8s in there. Now, to be clear, I'm only ever going to corner mark if there are up to 3 places in the box that can be that digit. You don't want to overwhelm yourself with markings. And I will always do 2, regardless of the situation, but I will only do 3 if they're all in the same row or column as each other. I would not mark 3 like this, for example. Ignore the red, because it can't actually be there. But this I would not mark, right? I would not mark this. Only if they were all in a row or all in a column. Okay. And that's because of the things we look for when we use the corner marks, which I'll go over as we find. I don't want to overwhelm you. So anyway, these duplicate 8s did put corner mark 8s here. Now there's no more duplicates, but remember there's other things we want to look for. Look for filled row, filled box rows is what we'd call that. So all 3 of these digits are filled. So this box row is full. When we do that, we actually can find kind of virtual buddies for our digits, right? So this 8 has a real buddy. This 2 had a real buddy, right? We can find virtual buddies. And what we want to do is we want to look at the 2 rows in the 2 boxes that aren't the filled row, right? Not the box and not the row, right? These digits, right? The one that we're not looking at this row, we're not looking at this box. So the other digits that I didn't highlight, right? Look at those. Ignore anything that's not filled, and ignore anything that's already in the box. So we're down to this 4, 9 here. Now, if you think about it, these 3 digits can't be 4. What buddy to this 4 would have done that? And the answer is somebody over here. If one of these was a 4, then I would have a 4 buddy, and we would have, so let's just pretend this cell was 4, right? If this cell was 4, then these 3 cells couldn't be 4, and this 4 would take it out of these 3, and I'd end up with 4 in one of these 3. And you can see that that is actually true, because this 4 looks in, and these aren't 4. We're ignoring anything up here. These aren't 4, this 4 looks in, so 4 is actually in one of these 3. So that virtual buddy, if you think about it, you have a virtual buddy because this is filled. So that means that we can quarter mark 4s down here. This 4 says not here, so we can quarter mark 4s. Now what I'm about to prove is that that virtual buddy is actually real. It's somewhere up there. One of the ways to prove that, there are several, but one of the ways to prove that is through pointing, and pointing is important to understand. And this is one of the reasons that we only do the quarter marks with 3 if it lines up, because we don't want to confuse ourselves and think there's pointing when there's not. But these 4s, let's think about what they mean, right? In this box, the 4 is going to end up here or here. It's going to be exactly one of those 2. And if we look at the final solution to this puzzle, one of these 2 cells will be a 4. We don't know which yet, but one of them will. What do they have in common? Well, they share the same row. So the 4 is not just for this box in one of these 2, it's also in this row in one of these 2. Because no matter where the 4 ends up, if the 4 ends up here or the 4 ends up here, it's going to remove 4 from these 3 cells. And these 3, but these 3 already couldn't be 4, right? But the point is, we can kind of, the reason it's called pointing is because you can draw a line between these 4s here, and they line up in the same row. So you can just continue that and point along the row and say none of you can be 4 because the 4 is here. So that's pointing. So these 4s point into this box, and this 4 looks into the box. We have this 4 looking down. So there is a 4 in one of these 2. So that buddy, that virtual buddy I was talking about, it will always end up actually being a real buddy in this case, because this is filled, right? So if you think about it, like, it must be true, because we're going to have a 4 somewhere, and it's not going to be here, and these are filled, right? So the 4 is going to be over here. So hopefully that's actually trivially, at this point, trivially obvious to you. If it's not, maybe go over my explanation again, or maybe just let it sink in over, it may take some time to sink in, but at some point it'll be like, hey, move on ranks because this is obvious, and that's what I want. Okay. We also have the 9. We want to make sure we also do the same thing with 9. So the 9 is also going to have a fake buddy somewhere up here. So we can actually mark that. We can mark the 9 here, and then that's going to make a 9 down here. Okay, so the 4 and 9 ended up down here. So that is the advantage of having this filled row, because we're looking for buddies, and there's basically just a given virtual buddy when you filled up a row like this for a lot of the times, and it's easy to find. And it only requires horizontal scanning. Right now I'm only walking you through techniques that require limiting the scope of where you're looking, and that's on purpose because that's the easiest stuff to find. There are things you can look for more globally in the grid, but we're not worried about that yet. We resort to that if we need to in this systematic approach. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Okay, now that's the only filled row. So the last thing we look for before we move on is a row or a box with 4 or fewer open cells. Still don't have any of those. This is down to 5, for example. This is down to 5. Okay, so we have finished all 3 bands. Now we're going to do the exact same thing with the stacks. You probably guessed that. So I'm going to start here, 2 and 7. We have all 3 2s, so we don't worry about that. It's only if we have exactly 2 that we're going to react. No 7 down here. Then we have the 4 and the 9. We're ignoring the 2. The 9 does have a buddy. So the 9s, look up. There's a 9 in one of these 2. We corner mark that. Base is exactly the same. We just rotated what we're doing 90 degrees. You could even, if you wanted to, if this was on paper, you could rotate the paper 90 and do the bands again. It would be the same thing, right? So that's the only duplicates that I found. Now we're going to be looking for box columns that are filled, and we're going to be looking for columns and boxes that are down to 4 or fewer. None of those in this one. So this one's kind of resistant to our systematic method. Some of the puzzles in the past few days, by this time, looking just for these things, by the time we got to this point, the puzzle was almost solved. So this puzzle is kind of interesting in that it's kind of resistant. But don't worry, I have plenty of follow-ups that we can do. We will find it. We will solve this puzzle, and I will walk you through how. So this band, now we're going to start with this 4. There are no 4s in these 2. Now we just look for 3 and 5 here and here. The 3s do match up. This 3 looks in, so we have a 3 in one of these two. Any filled box columns, where again, we don't care about this. We already took care of this. We did that horizontally. It's box columns that we care about. None of those are filled. Any columns or boxes down to 4 or fewer? No, there's not. Okay, now we're going to do this last stack. Look for 4 and 8. We do have a buddy 8 down here. Those look in, and that does place the 8 in this box. There's only one place in this box for 8 because these 2 are filled, right? We restricted it to these 3, but this is 5 and 6, right? So they're not 8. So that's the 8. Now, as soon as we place a digit, we want to follow up. And follow up is a little bit of a fuzzy term, but the idea is in this systematic method, you know exactly what you need to follow up on because you know what you've already done and what you haven't done. And you only need to follow up on what you already looked for. So in this case, we looked at this band already, but now we need to look at it again because we have new information. We have this 8 placed. So first thing, look for a buddy for the 8, and we have one. And that puts an 8 in one of these 2 cells. Now, this is something that I want you to learn how to trigger in your mind as soon as that happens. Ooh, I just found something cool. What have we found? I'm going to actually remove these 3 corner marks for a second to make it a little bit easier to see. But what we have found here is that we have limited the 2 and the 8 to the same 2 cells. We have exactly overlapping corner marks for the 2 and 8. So we have 2 digits quarter marked in exactly the same 2 cells, and they don't go in any other cells. What we have found here is called a hidden pair. We can convert those corner marks to center marks. I haven't even gone over what center marks mean yet, but now is the perfect time. So what do I mean by that? Well, in this box, the 2 has been limited to these 2 cells. And in this box, the 8 has been limited to these 2 cells. Does that sound familiar? Yes, it does. It's the same 2 cells, right? I need a 2 and an 8 in the box, and they can't both go in the same cell. I need 2 total cells for them. These are the only 2 cells that can be taken together, can be 2 and 8. Right? I need to place a 2 and I need to place an 8. They're going to end up in these 2 cells, which means in the final solution, one of these will be 2 and one of these will be 8. We don't know which is which, but one will be 2 and one will be 8 in some order. That's really interesting info because it means it can't be anything else. They can't be a 1. They can't be a 3. They can't be a 5, right? I'm listing things that you would think maybe some of these could be, right? Maybe this one could be a 1. There's no 1 in the column. There's no 1 in the row. There's no 1 in the box. Why can't it be 1? Well, it can't be 1 because we know in the final solution it's going to be a 2 or an 8 because the box needs a 2 and an 8. And these are the only 2 cells that can. So a hidden technique, this is called a hidden pair. Pair because it's 2 of them. If there were 3 of them, it would be hidden triple. If there were 4 of them, it would be hidden quadruple. If there was 1 of them, it would be hidden single, right? So if you think about it, it's not too different from the hidden single. It's just we're taking 2 digits at once into 2 cells. So we want to remember not just that 2 and 8 go here, but we want to remember that these cells could only be 2 and 8. We're going to use center marks for that. I'm going to put a 2, 8 center mark in here. Now, what center marks are is they are cell-centric. Remember that the corner marks are box-centric. The center marks are cell-centric. They are giving us the exact candidates of the digits we think are going to end up in that cell in the final solution. So in the final solution, I am saying that this cell is only ever going to be a 2 or an 8. In the final solution, this cell will only be a 2 or an 8. I don't know which one yet, but I know that it's not going to be any other digit, just the 2 or 8. And that's a great way to remember that. Now, once I've done that, I can remove the 2, 8 corner marks because it's kind of redundant. The center marks are generally more powerful than the corner marks, but it is situational because they do give you different info. But in this case, when it's overlapping, I recommend converting the corners to centers. Now, what has happened here? Remember we had corner mark 3s here? Can this cell actually be 3 anymore? Well, remember, the hidden pair has told us that this cell is going to be a 2 or an 8. So how could it be a 3? I can't put a 3 there. Now, if I put a 3 there, I can't fit the 2 and the 8 in this box. I fit one of them, but not the other. So why would there be a 3 corner mark here? Well, the answer is now there shouldn't be, right? So we can remove that 3 corner mark. And if you look, the 3 can't be in these 3 cells. This 3 says not in these cells. This 3 says not in these cells. And this 2, 8 hidden pair said not in this cell. It's the same as if we had placed this 8. Remember this hidden single? We placed an 8 here. Now that the 8 is there, it can't be any of the other digits. It's a very similar concept, just we're thinking about 2 digits at once. And so now this cell here is the only cell left in the box that can be 3, and our corner marks are telling us that. So immediately, we don't have to rescan it like I just did. Immediately, we just know, we trust our corner marks. We know there's only 1 3 left, we can place the 3. Perfect. Okay, keep following up. I'm going to follow up vertically first just because it does nothing, right? Vertically, we already have all 3 threes. But horizontally, we now have a buddy for the 3. So these 3s both look into here, and that places this 3. All right, we haven't finished scanning the stack. We're going to eventually unwind and rescan this stack. Remember, we're following up on this 8 still. So you kind of have to keep a stack in your brain of like, what am I following up on? And then what haven't I followed up on yet? If it helps, you can even just like use highlighting or notation of some kind to try to remember that. Like I could highlight this 8 in green, for example, and just to remind myself, this is what I'm currently following up on. And then when I unwind, I'll remember, okay, I was doing this column or something, right? So that 3 there, we didn't place another digit, but remember there were other things we looked for in this band. First thing, filled rows. Okay, so we want to look at these 2 rows. We don't care about open cells. And again, this is something you'd normally just do with your eyeballs, but you can highlight it if you want. The 2 and the 3 are already in the box. The 8 is already in the box. The 3 is already in the box. So nothing useful there. No virtual buddies to find. I would say this row is also filled. When we're talking horizontally, this row is filled because it doesn't matter if this ends up 2 or this ends up 8 or if this ends up 8 and this ends up 2. What matters is we know that these are 4, 2, 8. Which means we can look here for anything not placed in the box. So we don't care about empty cells. The 2 is placed. It's in one of these 2. The 3 is placed. The 8 is placed. It's in one of these 2. 8 is placed. 2 is placed. We're down to just the 5. So what we want to do is we want to see that there is a virtual 5. Now remember where the virtual 5 is? It's in this row here, because this row is the one that's filled. And so what 5 would remove from these 3? It would have to be in this box and in the same row. So there's a 5 over here, and there's also a 5 up here, one of these 2, because we have this 5 looking down. Remember that's how we do that. If you want, you can take it one step at a time by saying these 3 aren't 5 because of this 5, and these 3 aren't 5 because they happen to not be 5. And this 5 looks down, so 5 is one of these 2. That then points into this box, taking it from these 3. This 5 looks in. This isn't 5, and we get a 5, one of these 2. But if you want to shorthand it, as long as you remember how the buddy system works, you can just quickly place both of them. As long as you do it right. Don't put a 5 here, for example. That's wrong. Right? You need to get the right buddy. All right, so that was the 5. We followed up on this being full. No other filled rows that I can see. But the last thing we looked for is rows and boxes with 3 or fewer open cells. This row is down to 4 open cells. And in fact, I could argue it's down to 2 open cells because we know the 2, 8 are over here. So there's actually just 2 digits unaccounted for. We know one of them's the 5. It's corner marked right there. What's the other digit? It's the 1. So we can just put 1, 5 center marked here because we know these cells are going to end up being 1 and 5. Okay, now this box, the 1 and 5 are known. We don't care what order they go in. We know that they go here. They can't go anywhere else because they're going to go here. They can't go anywhere else in the box because they share the same box. And so what are the 3 digits remaining for this box? Well, they are the 4, 6, and 7. Now, I will say for center marks, only ever center mark. Actually, before we do that, we see that there's this 4 here looking in. And so the only cell now in this box that can be 4 is here. So we can place that. We're going to follow up on that. Maybe I'll purple it to remind ourselves that we should follow up on that. And so now these are down to 6 and 7. Now, what I was going to say is only center mark cells that are down to 3 or fewer digits. I do not recommend center marking them with 4 or more. You're going to clutter the grid and it's going to rarely be useful. You can always come back later and center mark it if you think it's been further restricted. But if you end up with every cell center marked and some of them have like 4, 5, 6 center marks in them, up to 8, 9 even, like that's just going to overwhelm you. And you're going to start only seeing the center marks and you're going to be ignoring the important thing, which is the givens. The digits you know about are much more important to be looking at than the digits you don't know about. I don't know if that makes sense, but okay. We're going to follow up on this 4 first. We're going to kind of unwind our stack a little bit. But we did get this 6, 7 pair, so I do want to talk about that as well. So maybe I'll purple that to look at next. So this 4 does have a buddy. They look in. This 4 looks down. That places 4 in this box. Now, what that 4 has done is we always want to, as soon as we place a digit, right? We want to look at the consequence. It has removed this 4 corner mark here. Now that one of the 4 corner marks is gone, we can look in the box and see there's only 1 4 corner mark left. So that is a hidden single 4 in the box. We can place that 4. We're going to need to follow up on that as well. horizontally. We haven't even finished this vertical scan yet. I will also say this box is down to 2 digits, so we're just going to center mark it. It is the 1 and the 9. Okay. Notice how this band, it just needed a little bit of a kick, and now suddenly it's doing really, really well. Okay, we finished following up on this 8, I'm pretty sure. Well, no, we were marking this 8 to remind ourselves that we needed to continue with this stack here. This 4 we want to follow up on, so let's do that. We already had the virtual buddy, though. We just found where the virtual buddy went, so there's really nothing to do there. It didn't fill up a row. It did reduce this row to 4 open cells, so let's think about that. When it's 4 open cells, I think about it. If it's 3 or fewer, I just start center marking. Sometimes. All right. Sometimes I just want to think about it anyway. But we're down to 5, 6, 7, 9. Should be 4 digits, right? 5, 6, 7, 9. And now what I'm doing is I'm looking up here for any 5, 6s, 7s, or 9s that might be helpful, or in the boxes. So for example, we know the 9's not over here. So this is down to 5, 6, 7. But it's in purple even. I had this 6, 7 pair here. Let's talk about what naked pairs do. So this is a naked pair because we can nakedly see that this is center mark 6, 7, and this cell center mark 6, 7. So what does that mean? They match up and they share a column. They also share a box, but the box isn't important right now. They would do the same thing to the box, but this digit is going to end up 6 or 7 in the final solution, and this digit is going to end up 6 or 7 in the final solution. Can they be the same digit in the final solution? Well, the answer is clearly no, because they're in the same column, and you cannot repeat digits in the column. They're not going to be both 6, they're not going to be both 7. So the only choice is one of them will be 6 and one of them will be 7. Well, if that's the case, the 6 and 7 for the column is known. They're here. They're in the purple cells. They're not here. So why would I center mark this with 6 and 7? It's not going to be 6 or 7. We know the 6 and 7's here in the column. This column can't have another one. So I can remove 6 and 7 as an option from this cell. And now suddenly we want it to be from 5, 6, 7, 9. It can't be 6, 7, and it can't be 9. So it's only going to be the 5. And that's called a naked single, because you can literally see my center mark is down to 1 digit. If I want a digit in here, it better be the 5. So I'm going to place that as a 5. Now that removes 5 from any markings we have in the row in the box. And so now this is a naked single 6. This is the only time I'm going to do that in this long form. If you see one red 5 and a blue 6, right, just place the 6, you know. Or if you don't have the red markings on, if you just know that you have the 5, there's no reason to clear the 5 first, right? Just place the 6. Okay. And so now we have this 5, 6. We're down to 2 more digits in this row. And that's going to be the 7 and 9. This 7 tells us this one's not 7. So the 7 has to go here and the 9 goes here. That resolves this 1, 9 pair. Just naked singles, right? Okay, so now we have a lot more to follow up on. But let's think about this row a little bit, or this band a little bit more. We place this 5, 6. We're going to look for buddies for that. We place this 7. We're going to look for buddies for that. We actually don't have any. I'm going to think about this 6, 7 pair a bit more, though, because if you think about it, we know where the 6 and 7 are, so we should be able to find buddies. So the 6 has a buddy down here. These aren't 6. These aren't 6, right? Because the 6 is going to be somewhere here. Remember our virtual buddy that we had before, or our pointing? It's very similar. It's just we have a pair this time. Pairs are even more powerful than those. So we have these 6s up here. So 6 ends up here. And we also have these 7s. 7 has a buddy, right? The 7 buddy is one of these two. It looks down. And that means there's only one place for 7 in this box. So we can place the 7. As soon as we place the 7, you want to pay attention to what corner mark used to be in that cell, which was an 8. Now that that 8 is gone, there's only one place for 8 in this box, and we can place it. This 7 also has a buddy. Now, at this point, you're going to find that following up is there's too much to follow up on. So you want to just be looking for the low-hanging fruit follow-ups and just do your best, and then just sort of maybe rescan the stuff that you touched, maybe from scratch if you're not sure. So here we have 2 digits left. It's going to be the 1 and the 5. Oops, 5 is wrong. Sorry, 5 is in the box already. What did I miss? 1 and 3. Okay. And now that is a naked 1, 3 pair. I'm going to remove this. We follow up on the 6, 7. This 1, 3 pair, one of these will end up 1, right? One of these will end up 3. So this one can't be a 1. The one's over here. So this is a 5, and that's a 1. Now for this column, we have a pair left. Notice that I'm targeting at this point. If I see a row or column or box with like one open cell, we're just going to place that, right? 2 open cells, I'm going to place the center mark pair, or potentially even resolve it. I think that's the lowest hanging fruit you can possibly do in a puzzle. So 1, 2, 3, we need the 4 and the 9 here. Oops, I typed the wrong digit. 4 and 9, but you can see that this cell, from our red markings, you can see this one can't be 4, right? So if it can't be 4, then it has to be 9, and that makes this one the 4. Very nice. Okay, this one's down to 2 as well. Notice I'm treating this 6, 7 as basically done when I scan in the direction that it exists in. I would not consider 6, 7 done this way or this way, but because the pair is in this column, right? I'm considering the 6, 7 done. So this is going to be the final 2 digits for the column. It's going to be the 1 and the 3. Okay, and then over here, this is going to be a triple for the column and the box, because you consider the 1, 3 done for the box. There's 3 digits remaining that the box doesn't know about yet. It is the 5, it is the 6, and it is the 8. This 8 says this one's not 8. This 5 says this one's not 5. So now I would consider this stack quote unquote done, right? And when we look at it as a stack, we only have vertical pairs and triples left within boxes. And so nothing really is going to resolve that except stuff coming in from horizontals. We don't need to worry about following up vertically. It's basically done. It's as if it was filled when we look at it vertically. And also when we look at the boxes themselves, if we look at box-centric stuff, you can kind of consider the box basically done. It's a little bit fuzzy. It depends on how you want to think about it. All right, there's stuff I want to follow up on. There's a lot of stuff I want to follow up on. Let's think about some of these digits we placed, though. So we placed this 4 and 9. It doesn't really matter what order you look at them in, but you're going to get some fruit out of that. So that places the 4 in this box as a hidden single. This can't be 4 anymore, so now this 4 is a hidden single in the box based on our corner marks. We also placed this 9. I don't see any like buddies for the 9 or anything like that. We placed this 5 and 1, I think. Placed this 4. Just thinking about what we placed recently. This 8 we definitely placed. 8s are done in the row. Okay, over here I am seeing that this row is down to 3 open cells. I think that's worth looking at. So we need the 6, 7, and 9. Now one thing I know about this is in this row, the 9 has been limited to these 2 cells only. You see that? The 9 is not here and the 9 is not here. So actually we could just see that we have buddy 9s doing it as well. But the 9 is in one of these 2. That could have been useful if we didn't already have the other 9s. Okay. This row's down to 4 open cells. So let's think about it at least. We need the 1, 5, 6, 7. So we know the 1 is limited to one of these 2 cells in the row. So we can corner mark that. We also had these buddy 1s. And then the 6, 7 aren't really limited. So I can mark this as 5, 6, 7 and 1, 6, 7 because this can't be 5 and this can't be 1, right? But this is any of 1, 5, 6, 7. So I'm not going to mark that because that's 4 remaining. Okay, any other? We remember I wanted to follow up on this 4. We kind of did, but let's do this whole band. Let's look at it again. So are there? Let's actually look for buddies here, right? Let's do that first. So we have all of our 2s. I'm just comparing this against both of these. 3, actually, we don't know much about. The 1, we don't know much about. The 8 is done. Then we've got the 2 here. That's done. The 4 here. That's done. The 7, we got that marked already. And the 9, we got that marked already. Okay. Next thing we're going to look for is really, we're just going to look for, we got 4 open cells in this box and 4 open cells in this box. So let's just think about that. These we know are already markable because these aren't 9 and these aren't 7, so they'll be down to 3. But what are the digits we need in this box? We need a 5 still. We need a 6. We need a 7 and a 9. That one's not 5 because of the 5 here. Now what I'm doing is when I mark those, I always want to be glancing around to see if I notice any like pair or triple that may have come out of that. Sorry, I need to refresh my cough drop real quick. I don't see anything. I see some stuff that's close, but you're looking for identical stuff. Okay. And now this box here is down to 4. I also want to follow up on this stack. We haven't actually finished the stack yet. So actually, because this box is in this stack, let's look at the stack first. Let's get rid of this 8 that we have highlighted here. So 4 and 8 are done. But we're going to find buddies for the 2, right? The 2. That's very helpful. This 2 looks in. That places this 2 here. Now follow up on that. These 2s look in. This 2 looks up. There's a 2 in one of these 2. All right. Follow up this 8 as well. 8 is done. 4 is done. The 7 and the 9 have buddies here, right? The 7 looks up. This 7 looks in. There's a 7 in one of these 2. And the 9s look up. And the 9 looks in. There's a 9 in one of these 2. Okay. So that's that initial scan. This column is down to 3. That's the first thing I want to focus on. Same with this column is down to 3. So we can look at that. So we can just center mark it because it's down to 3. We need a 3 though. And I'm seeing that this top one's not a 3. But anyway, we'll take care of that in a second. So we need 3, 5, and 8. Not 8. What did I miss? 3, 5, and 6. And this one's not 3. Well, if this one's not 3, that means the 3's down here. We can corner mark that. Importantly, that means since none of these are 3, and then this 3 looks up, right? There's going to be a 3 somewhere in this box. It ends up in one of these 2. Did that trigger something for you? It should have. We have a hidden 3-9 pair here. If we ignore the 7, it's a little easier to see. But I want you to get used to being able to spot that even with that 7 interfering. We can convert those to center marks. That is a hidden 3-9 pair. That means we can get rid of the 3-9 corner mark. And it also means that this 7 is actually not possible anymore, and it places the 7 here. Now these 7s do look in, putting the corner mark 7s here. You see the advantage of having those corner marks? We would not have spotted that otherwise. Now this column is basically done. We just have 1 digit left that isn't accounted for. It is the 1, actually. We can place the 1 in the column. That resolves this 3-1 pair here. That 3 comes back around, giving us the 3 in the column. Remember, it was for the column. When you place a 3 in the corner, there's just this weird Easter egg feature. That's kind of a meme that lets you do an effect when you place 3 in the corner. I wouldn't worry about it. It even works if you place a 3 and it's wrong. Like this 3 could be wrong, but it'll do the effect anyway. So this is 5 or 6. Okay. So I think that's it for following up on that, but that was quite nice. And so now this box has 3 digits left. Remember, we can think of the 3-9 as done. There's 3 digits not accounted for, and they go in these 3 cells. They are the 1, 5, and 6. And this one's not 5 because of that 5 there. Okay, very, very handy. We are almost done with the puzzle. You can see how we've filled most of the cells at this point. So now what we really want to do is we want to try our best to just rescan for things and just look for cells that are restricted. When the puzzle is almost done like this, often just center marking cells will finish it for you, but not always. So we want to be frugal about our markings still a bit. I'm on the lookout for anything that may be useful from what we've already marked, or something I didn't quite follow up on, because we've done a lot in a short period of time. Is there anything vertically here maybe that I forgot to follow up on? Okay, no, okay. So I think what we want to do, again, rows, columns, boxes down to 4 or fewer. This row we haven't really looked at. It is down to 4. So let's think about what they are. They are the 1, 5, 6, 8. Well, we know the 5 is not in either of these. So and actually, if you look at this row, right, we need a 1 in it still. None of these are 1s, just based on our markings. And this one here says it's not here. So we can actually place the 1 in the row. And that does remove this 1. So now there's only 1 place for 1 in this box. It goes here in the cell that we didn't mark, which is nice. Don't have to ever mark that. Now this is the only place for 5, because that did remove a 5 corner mark. So this is the only place for 5. That 5 looks down. Now you can actually see a few things. You can see this in a few ways. One, the way I saw it is we now have only 1 place for 5 in this box, which is right here. Even though we didn't have that corner marked, I am seeing that. It's pretty easy to see, right? There's only 1 place for 5. We just removed 2 5s from this box. So just look at the rest of the box to see where 5 can go. It's only here. And now there's only 1 place for 9. If you didn't see it that way, you can see that we made a 6-7 pair here. The 6-7 pair is very useful, right? I'm going to get rid of these markings because now the rest of the box and the rest of the row can't be 6 or 7 because the 6 and 7 are here. So this is not 6, this is not 6, and this is not 6, right? So that gives you the 9, which then gives you this 5, and then this 6, 7 also gave this 5, which gives us 6. That 6 looks up, finishes this triple entirely. This 5 looks in, finishing this triple entirely, and this 1 looks in, finishing this pair. Right, we're getting a lot of this. This 3 comes back, finishing this pair. This row has just 1 digit left to place. Always good to place that. That's an 8. That finishes this 2-8 pair. That 2 comes back up, giving us a hidden single 2 in this box. Notice how our markings are doing a lot of work for us. We already found it. Why find it again? This is a 6 now for the row, right? And that removes 6 from here. I removed a 6. I looked to see where else in the box could be 6. And I looked to see where else in the row could be 6. It wasn't a single, unfortunately, but that is what I looked for. We are down to 7, 9 here. So we can mark that, but then this 9 tells us this one's not 9. So that's 7, that's 9. That's 7. That finishes this triple. This whole puzzle's finishing. That's 6 and 7, and now we're done. So yeah, the systematic approach still worked. We had to have some patience. We had to get all the way to the last stack. And before we even finished the last stack, we basically finished the puzzle. So yeah, it was looking a little bleak there at first, going through the bands, not getting much, going through this stack and this stack, not getting much. But once we actually got to this stack, and really this one here, I don't remember exactly where, we started having follow-ups all over the place. I think it really came from placing this 8. Now, of course, if you are a bit more versatile in your order of things, you may have noticed this 8 earlier, and just getting that placed really early would have definitely sped up this solve, right? Because by then we would do this band and we would see that the 8 had a buddy, and that would have barely helped because it would join the 2. We'd got this hidden 2-8 pair off to the races. So you can see how the systematic method works, but you can also start getting a sense of what are the things I'm finding in this systematic method that are extremely helpful that maybe I should just do a glance and look for earlier. And so it's up to you how you want to approach the puzzle. But my recommendation is don't start doing advanced things before the low-hanging fruit has been resolved. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. I'm trying to be as in-depth as possible, as is reasonable in these medium solves. If you want to see a bit of a more fluid solve using kind of the same methodology along with a bit more advanced methods that sometimes the hard requires, watch my hard solves. So they're actually faster. But I do a lot less explaining because I assume you have already learned the basics from the medium. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, then why not leave a like, subscribe, and a kind comment below.